let's move over to two major developments on the deportation front, on the two different wings of the kind of deportation. There's the political wing, which is rounding up students and others who are critical of Israel and detaining them and deporting them. And then there's the case of the Venezuelans sent down to Bukele's torture chamber down in El Salvador. So let's start with that one. So put up this first element, E1. So the Trump administration has now responded to this judicial order from the Supreme Court that said the Trump administration had to, quote, facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia, which is Kilmar Abrego Garcia. This is the man that people hate when you call him a Maryland father. I don't know what you want to call him, a construction worker who used to live in Maryland and has children.
He was president of the United States. He had a deportation hold on him, saying he cannot be held, sent to El Salvador.
Right.
He was sent to El Salvador. The administration admitted they, quote, mistakenly sent him to El Salvador.
And then the administration fired the DOJ attorney.
There you go.
Who admitted that.
Right.
And so now they are saying, and it's an interesting argument that to grapple with because of the separation of powers question. So what they're saying is that he is now in the sovereign custody of Nayib Bukele in El Salvador, and that no judge can order the executive to make any engagement when it comes to foreign policy with any sovereign country, that is the sole discretion of the executive. It raises, of course, extremely uncomfortable questions. What, like, just to go to the, like, to take it to an absurd degree, if Trump picked up Sotomayor and sent her to Bukele's prison, and the Supreme Court was like, you cannot pick up a Supreme Court justice and send them to a prison in El Salvador. You need to facilitate her return. The Trump administration would make the same argument. Well, look, it doesn't matter how they got there. You don't have the power to do that. So I don't like. It's like
this is currently being litigated at the district court. No, look, Ryan, you're right. All right, and people, it's probably important for people to hear me even say it. If you mistakenly deport somebody and then you house them in the custody of a foreign government and you pay that foreign government to house that person and then you claim that they're in the sovereign custody of that other country, you said should not have deported him. So it's a little bit different than if he had been, let's say he had traveled to El Salvador by himself and the El Salvadorians put him in prison. And he's an El Salvadorian citizen. Right. Okay, whatever, right? Not whatever, but for him, but what are you going to do about it? All right. Pretty different story. Facilitate his return. As you said, they are saying, if the El Salvadorians ever let him out, then sure, we'd allow him back in the United States. That's basically the crux of their argument at the current district court level. However, people should remember, this does not just end right here. There will continue to work this way through the legal process for that definition of what facilitate means. And in fact, I was speaking with a couple of court watchers and others on this, and they are specifically saying that this payment notion, that is the crux of the art, that's really the Achilles heel. The reason legally why the administration needs to fight so hard on this is that if you release one person, you actually show and admit that it's not in the custody of solely of the El Salvadorian government, that it is in the United States government. And that leads to more court challenges, ACLU challenges and others, let's say over that makeup artist, right, who we had previously seen, and it opens the legal ground to all of this
or the soccer player we've talked about.
Player that you talked about
totally
as well.
Dude.
It's very obvious that the administration, look, they are terrified of you raised this, of somebody coming back. I think most what they're terrified of is admitting that they did something wrong. Right. Because when you admit that you did something wrong, then, look, there are a lot of people who they don't know about any of this case, right? And on its face, a lot of people who support mass deportation, whatever, are looking at this and be like, yeah, okay, this makes sense or whatever, worst to the worst, and they're taking the administration's word for it. The thing is now the administration, in the same way that they have on tariffs, is now showing this on immigration. So we previously saw that MS-13 East Coast gang leader, right, who was allegedly this horrible human trafficker, drug paraphernalia, etc. They got a gun, slapped him with a gun charge, and now they're just, okay, we're going to deport him to El Salvador. Fine. Okay, guy had a gun illegally, definitely a crime. Why was the governor of Virginia there and the Secretary of Homeland Security?
Right.
So what's that? Is it just a low-level gang member? And you know, this entire thing is made up. Same with a lot of the case here. We've seen around the tattoos, etc. I mean, again, you know, to be totally honest, like never in my wildest dreams did I think that anybody could ever be so stupid as to use the process currently right now. That's on me, so everyone can dunk on me if they want to. But that's just, you can see pretty clearly as more information has come out, not only in El Salvador, let's continue. El Salvador, this, what we're about to get to with the Mahmoud Khalil situation, with this this woman
Rumeysa
who is now,
Ozturk.
go ahead, you can set it up.
Yeah,
this is an example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And, you know, just to resurrect again, a Vietnam era term, credibility gap. That was a term that became widespread during the Lyndon Johnson administration, where very similarly Americans trusted the government. They trusted the government about what they were saying around, in this case, immigration at that time about Vietnam.
Yeah,
but the more lies got exposed, the more that the default assumption was, you are lying to me, now became baked into the American
Right, and
consciousness.
people who supported that general policy assumed that there was some level of due diligence.
That's correct.
Being put into this, and so that, and it appears that there's very little. So we can put up E2 on the screen. This is a big Washington Post scoop that came out last night, where a memo leaked out of the State Department that said, okay, you asked us to look into Rumeysa Ozturk, who is a Tufts graduate student, to see whether or not she had done anything that that we can even remotely link to saying that she supported Hamas. And if you look at Mahmoud Khalil, there's nothing out there where they have found where he has said anything that could be construed as supporting Hamas. Like it's just not out there. Yet they're clinging to that because he participated in some of these protests where there were some signs at the protests that could be construed in that direction, and so he was in the same vicinity. So
that's guilt by association.
Got him there. Okay, so that's their bar. That's how low their bar is. They couldn't even clear that bar for her. The only thing that we have publicly seen, and that they've been able to dig up because they've got Canary Mission and all these other Zionist organizations who have enormous amount of resources to spend investigating these students, if they tweeted anything in 2010 or 2011, and even in support of like a flotilla bringing aid into Gaza, like we would know this about Rumeysa Ozturk. They have an op-ed on which she was one of 4 co-authors that was published in her student newspaper that was in support of a student senate resolution that passed. So like, that means like the entire student senate is supportive of Hamas if these claims are true. And if you read the actual op-ed, there's a ton in it that Hamas would not agree with. Like it's not a remotely Hamas supporting op-ed. It's just like, it's talking about equality in Israel and it's kind of critical of the way that Israel is conducting its genocide. I don't even know if they use. I don't even remember if they use the word genocide. And it's a very. It's a very.
We should go check it. Yeah, I'm curious.
People go look up Ozturk's op-ed. So that's the one. So it turns out, according to the State Department, which looked closely at her case, that's all they had. Nothing else. And they said there is no evidence that we can provide to Marco Rubio to justify a claim that she is encouraging anti-Semitism, by which they mean, significantly critical of Israel, or that she is supportive of a terrorist organization. The goods are not there. That memo was in the custody of the State Department, produced by State Department officials, and they went and grabbed her off the streets of Somerville, Massachusetts. Anyway, you've seen that. I guarantee you that you've seen clips of
we played
viral
you
footage.
and I together. We played that.
Yeah. This horrifying stuff where you've got these like plainclothes goons pulling up in the SUVs and dragging her away. That was a pretty long time ago. Time kind of blends together here. She has not been deported. Like she is living in some deplorable conditions right now in immigration detention. And this is a person who, according to a State Department investigation, did nothing, and I don't want to say wrong, because it's not actually wrong to criticize Israel, but she didn't do anything that even Marco Rubio's unconstitutional bar that he has set, and unconstitutional according to federal judge Mary Trump, like she didn't even do that. And currently she's deprived of her freedom. Currently is a political prisoner sitting behind bars in a detention center awaiting some sort of adjudication of this case that's been brought against her.
You know what's crazy is even, quote, Tufts Friends of Israel says, "We strongly oppose the content of the op-ed that Ozturk co-authored. But restricting freedom of speech is flat out undemocratic and un-American. Freedom of speech in a democracy is sacred. It ensures that dissent is heard and that people can express themselves." That's the Tufts Friends of Israel argument. They did say genocide, by the way. I just
okay.
at the
Well, it is a genocide.
I mean, whatever.
So,
you can say whatever you want. Okay, even if whatever. You know, it's not a verboten word. All right, shall we? I mean, even looking at this entire case and the background within it, you would assume. I mean, again, you could dunk on me if you want. You would assume. Let's say if you were to deport somebody, Ryan, and you don't support this policy, neither do I, but we were to deport foreign students who participated in anti-Israel activism, where do we start? We start with people who committed a crime, right?
Right.
I would look at that Hamilton Hall thing. Anybody who was charged with a crime, and this is, again, I don't support this policy, but that's where I would start. Who could argue against that? Right? You could say, oh, it's not, it doesn't rise to the bar or whatever. But you can't legally,
if you commit a crime on,
and you're here
on
a student
visa, you can be deported.
You're dead. You got dead to rights.
And that wouldn't even be surprising to people who are.
It would not be surprising to people. That's exactly right. But they start with Khalil. For what reason? I think at this point we can only conclude. Well,
they thought he was on a visa.
They thought he was on a visa. That's number one. But two is also you start with somebody who, in a certain way, is much more unimpeachable than the Hamilton Hall person, as just a signal of like, you shouldn't even be doing this.
Right.
And actually, I mean, I know people may get upset about this. What I find the most objectionable is the government taking over the Columbia University Middle Eastern Studies Department.
And Harvard too,
and Harvard, and getting United States citizens expelled from a university because of something that they said. I mean, these are citizens of the United States of America who paid presumably good money to attend a private university and are then being expelled from that institution and having their education taken over by the government here, specifically on behalf of a foreign government to teach what? I mean, what are the terms now that are banned at Columbia University? Like, like what? Middle Eastern studies?
Yeah.
What national interest do we have here that Americans sufficiently, bow down to the state of Israel in private university Ivy League education? Or is it all a power play to show is like, hey, you should not be messing with? I mean, really, this is like Bill Ackman and the Zionist, pro-Israel lobbies. Like, this is their fever dream. This is their wet dream, like come to life, is literally taking over the institutions which they see as theirs and making them sufficiently pro-Israel and making sure that there is no dissent there at all. And the fact that it's done on behalf of a foreign government is just honestly makes it for me 10 times worse. And you can even understand in the past Vietnam censorship or World War II or any of that. That is within the bounds, not of acceptability, but of understanding about how a nation grappling with an internal crisis. But this is not even close to that.
And we can't afford this right now. Meanwhile, foreign tourism is plummeting. The line is going straight down. It's like 40%, but it's no sign of what the bottom could actually be. I saw somebody saying, well, it's only 0.42% of GDP. It's like, bro, do you understand how big 0.42% of GDP is? If you shave that off, that could take you from GDP growth, if you're close to flat, to recession territory. And it's not just that 0.42. Yes, that's the direct result, but everybody who works in that industry, they pay rent. Some send their kids to private schools. Some, they go to the grocery store. They buy things. Now they're not paying their rent. Now the landlord is going to foreclose on that. It's like there's a ripple effect throughout the economy. So taking a half point of GDP and just saying no thank you to it is huge, and that doesn't even count the foreign students and we've argued about this before. But the foreign students spend billions and billions of dollars in this country, propping up the economies of the neighborhoods.
I don't disagree. I've just said before, I think it's a bad financing system while you're also relying on America. I mean, for example, I think there was like 45,000 graduate students who are foreign who were admitted to some of these. But you might say, oh, okay, that's great. And it's like, yeah, but they also have a 4% acceptance rate. And part of the reason why a lot of these people do get admitted is because they pay full freight.
Yeah.
I think that's actively discriminatory against U.S. citizens. I would be happy to reform it with you, Ryan, about, but is this the solution? Yeah, I would say no. I don't think that this is the overall solution to this. So unfortunately, I mean, we are now in the clown show where Khalil has been greenlit for deportation. It's going to happen, it looks like.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, so Friday, the immigration court judge ruled that he could be deported. He still has a habeas petition in front of the federal court. So his lawyers are very...
What country is he a citizen of?
So his parents his mother is from Algeria, so he has Algerian citizenship. He also was born in Syria, but as a Palestinian refugee in a refugee camp, so he doesn't have Syrian citizenship. And what does that even mean in this Al-Qaeda-run state right now? And so, but his lawyers, who I talked to over the weekend, said that they expect he would be deported to one of those two countries, but one of those two countries would have to accept him. And if they don't, now Algeria might, in order to kind of save him from getting sent to Syria, because Syria might be more willing to do it because it's run by Al-Qaeda, which is we finance them, and they're willing to do whatever to try to get sanctions released or whatever else. Then he would be at serious risk if he's in Syria. Whereas the Algerians might say, all right, if he's getting deported, we'll take him and maybe we can protect him a little bit more.
It is so funny to think about that he would be at serious risk in Syria, because what the administration and the Zionists people are telling us is that he's some pro-terrorist sympathizer. It's like, yeah, guys, those are actual terrorists, and anybody who's been palling around with Jews, Jewish students, and pro-peace and all that, they're not so happy with you.
There's
and actual terrorists, they look at you and yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's that. Plus there's Israeli influence in Syria. So Algeria would be more likely, but they're still fighting it, and the habeas case is still ongoing, unless they just ignore it and say, you know what, hey, screw you, we're gonna ship him out, and then once he's out, there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah, that's exactly what they're saying with Abrego Garcia, and we mentioned at the top.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.